Hi, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Rattanavong. I'm from Laos, representing PTL Holding. Today, I will present two projects as an investment opportunity, which are cornerstone infrastructure projects in Laos, but also in Vietnam. So I think I'll start with the background of the country first, for those of you who are not familiar with what's happening in Laos. So Laos itself, a very small country, population of about 8 million people, roughly the size of Austria in terms of population. Area size around the state of Utah would be an appropriate comparison. And in terms of our GDP, we're the smallest in ASEAN. I think that's due to a lot of inflationary pressures over the past two years, post-COVID. So that had an impact on our currency. But roughly $16.1 billion GDP for this year expected. Over the past 15 years or so, we've been growing at a clip of about 7%, which is quite decent, I would say, for a frontier or I would say emerging market such as Laos. Now, I'd like to touch on the themes of the country's economic fundamentals, right? So for us, there's four key themes. Which underpins our investment or economic development. The first one is, Laos is known for being naturally endowed with resources, right? So an example of that would be abundant mineral deposits. We have a lot of potash. We have a lot of gold reserves, about 500 tons. And we have a lot of arable land. With about 70% forest cover. So very good site for agricultural production and processing. And I think the second theme is that we're powered by green energy, right? So this has been in place even before the trends took place of the energy transition and whatnot. But that's demonstrated by the fact that we're 71% reliant on hydropower. I think some of you have been aware that we've been the battery of ASEAN for quite some time now, exporting hydropower to Thailand as well as Vietnam. We have grid-to-grid connectivity with China as well, our neighbor to the north. So I think that's the two key starting points. And then the next starting point is infrastructure development, right? So over the past couple of years, the government has paid a lot of attention to growing the country by building hard infrastructure assets. And we are obviously honored to partake in that process. We've been entrusted with developing four key projects. I would say three, because one is a sub of another. The first one is the Laos-Vietnam Railway Project, which is the first cross-border railway between Laos and Vietnam. The next one is the Vientiane Logistics Park project, which my colleague Eric touched on earlier. And a subcomponent of the VLP project, Vientiane Logistics Park, is a dry port, which constitutes the first phase of the project. The dry port, or TDP, is already in operation, so we finished it in rapid time, I would say, of about 11 months. And that has played a key role in connecting the recently inaugurated Laos-China Railway with the Laos-Thailand Railway. So I think we've managed to complete it on time, and most significantly, we've been able to finance that with international support, specifically from the IFC, the private sector arm of the World Bank. The last project in the pipeline on a national level is the Vong Ang Deep Sea Port, which we're also involved in. We own about a 10% indirect stake in that project, along with the Ministry of Finance of Laos. The other 80%, so on the Laos side, we own 20%. On the Vietnam side, about 80% with their state-owned enterprises. I think the fourth theme is, we have supportive government and trade policy, so a full fiscal and investment incentive is there. Maybe not that as competitive as our neighbors, but I think that has enabled us to become a part of the supply chain for light manufacturing. I think the highlight is that as a least developed country, we have access to GSP rights, or Generalized System of Preferences, with Europe. So that enables low-cost importation into Europe, especially if you decide on Laos as a production base. So obviously that's complemented by a low cost and growing labor force. So a little bit about PTO Holding. So our story really is that we've been built on the back of trading, right? So our chairman and founder, Mr. Chanton Sitisai, essentially made his first pot of gold trading timber, exporting to China, Vietnam, as well as Thailand. That has channeled to growth into or diversification into petroleum trading, consumer goods trading. We're one of the largest petroleum distributors in the country, owning about 100 plus gas stations. Wholesale consumer goods as well, so we import a lot from Thailand, from various MNCs that have a production base in Thailand. And the third flagship is City Logistics, which is an in-house logistics platform. So we don't do 3PL or anything like that. It's more like a in-house 2PL service provider, transporting consumer goods for our consumer goods trading business, as well as petroleum for our petroleum business to various points in the country. And in recent years, we have been foraying into the infrastructure space, recognizing the importance of connectivity and hard assets, right? So we are very much aligned with our government's vision to transform the country from a land-locked country to a land-linked one. And I think these are represented by projects such as the LVRP, the Laos Vietnam Railway Project, the Vientiane Logistics Park, and obviously a third project related is the Vong Ang Deep Sea Port. So the takeaways for us is that we are probably considered a blue chip company in our country, right? So top line of about 300 million, EBITDA maybe around 24 million as of last year. The second theme or takeaway is that we intend to transform the Lao economy, right? So we hope that with our persistent effort and resources that we can help realize the government's vision of becoming a land-linked country. And I think that's important to note because the reason why we chose this mission is because Laos itself has very few avenues to grow its economy, right? So I think we missed the bandwagon of being a manufacturing-led country, right, to spur our growth. We're not a Vietnam, we're not a China, definitely not Korea in its heyday. So I think the pathway for us to achieve, let's say, developed status or at least middle income status is to focus on logistics, leveraging our location, right, bordering with economic behemoths like China, which is the second largest economy in the world, as well as within ASEAN itself, connecting with the fourth largest economy, Vietnam, as well as Thailand, the second largest. So these projects will play a key role in linking the ASEAN economies, these major ASEAN economies, with us being a key node, right? So we like to have the humble or modest opinion, or let's say objective of us being a link rather than a hub. A hub will let Singapore be that player, we'll let Hong Kong be that player, but as a link, I think we have a key role to grease the wheels of regional commerce and make things happen. So onto the two projects. It's a very simple project, really, in terms of the concept, right? So Laos is landlocked. We built a dry port, which is part of the Vientiane Logistics Park, an integrated industrial zone, similar to the YCH Superport project. We have warehousing, we have space for manufacturers to be based here. And really, it's designed to link by rail through the Laos Vietnam Railway Project to Vong Ang Deep Sea Port, right? So that will provide Laos with an alternative access to the sea. Because at the moment, more than 80% of our seaborne cargo is reliant on Lam Chabang Port in Thailand. So I think the benefits to investors is that it creates optionality for you guys, right? For those involved in trading, exports and imports. It provides a more efficient pathway to access Northeast Asia, especially if you're setting yourself up in Northeastern Thailand. And also for the players from Northeast Asia, Japan and Korea, right? So if they go through the central part of Vietnam, north central part of Vietnam, connect with our port, and then onwards by railway to Vientiane Logistics Park, they can also access Europe through the Laos-China Railway, which our dry port is connected to. The second project is Vientiane Logistics Park. This project has been initiated about 3 years ago. The first phase is the dry port, as I mentioned. We provide logistics, terminal handling, container handling. We're embarking on a CapEx expansion plan for additional warehousing, as well as the subsequent phases, maybe the next 5 years. We plan to have an export processing zone, a free trade zone, and a digital hub. And also, there's also a tank farm phase, working in partnership with a consortium of Malaysian and local investors. Okay, so the LVRP, as we like to abbreviate, is divided into 3 phases, actually 2, because one phase has 2 sub-phases. The first phase is designed to connect right off the bat with northeastern Thailand, in the city called Takek, that's in the central part of Laos, so Nakhon Phanom is across the border. And then that will connect with the border of Laos and Vietnam called Mugia, which is about 145 kilometers. And then phase 1B will connect with the border to Vong Ang Seaport. So the first phase itself is expected to be complete by 2030. And then phase 3 will be finished, connecting Takek to our Vientiane Logistics Park project by 2035. So I think the key drivers or justification for our project, the LVRP, is that number one, it starts with better infrastructure and connectivity, right? So right off the bat, we'll have a railway line that connects with LCRC, Laos China Railway, as well as the Vietnam network. The second thing is that it'll enhance supply chain resilience, right? So we're very much part of that conversation post the pandemic to realize stronger supply chains. Laos can play a very small role in that, but I guess that enables us to punch above our weight, so to speak. The third one is supporting urban development. So this one is a new concept that we've been pushing our government to explore, which is basically transport-oriented development, right? So along the railway, there's various businesses that can be developed. As you probably are aware, railway projects are very challenging to execute and make money from. But I think we're lucky that we're in a position that, most of the freight, most of the cargoes and the focus is on freight transport, so it's not passenger per se. But having said that, there is room to create new urban centers around key stations, right? Which would obviously spur into new businesses, healthcare, real estate, and tourism. In terms of the economics, huge impact over the 50-year concession period, projected about 41 billion, if I'm counting correctly, in economic impact over the 50-year lifespan of the concession. Project IRR of about 7%, equity IRR of 10%. Might not sound as sexy, obviously, possibly below your cost of capital, but I think it's important to keep in mind that we are developing these projects with the firm support of both governments, the Laos and Vietnam governments, whereby we are working on a proper risk allocation package in terms of government provision for guarantees to mitigate the traffic risk, as well as subsidies in the case of on the Vietnam side of up to 50% of the capex. So I think that alleviates a lot of the investment burden and it enhances the IRR. As you can see, with 25% funding, we should be able to hit an equity IRR of 14%. With 50% funding, as we're expecting in Vietnam, roughly 20% on an equity basis. So I think that's quite attractive coming from the investment community. Now, in terms of progress, I'll run through this quickly. We are in, I would say, the mid-cycle of the development phase, right? So we're almost done with the technical studies. The permitting has been secured on the Laos side. In fact, we're expecting to sign the concession agreement just for the Laos segment later this year. And on the Vietnam side, we're working with quite a credible local partner called Delca Group. So their expertise, it's infrastructure construction, and they have been very supportive in securing the favorable terms with the Vietnam government. And obviously, as I mentioned, we hope to kick off commercial operations by 2035 for the entire line. So the second project, the Vientiane Logistics Park project, just a little bit more details. It's intended to be a key logistics node, right? So I don't want to say the word hub anymore, for the region, especially the Indochina region. And I think Laos itself has the potential through our projects, right, to play a role similar to what Switzerland or Austria has done for Europe, right? But no one has really taken that first step of assuming, the responsibilities for mega projects like this, right? So I think we're one of the few private sector companies to launch this in conjunction with our government. So that's a great honor for us. And VOP is a testament to that effort, right? So the first phase is complete. The subsequent phases, we welcome obviously interest to have dialogue and potential co-investment in the warehousing, basically building extra warehouses, the free trade zone, as well as the tank farm and free trade zones phases as well. And I think that the last phase, to put it all together, is to link this up, right, with the port in Vietnam, as well as other dry ports in the region, right, through efforts from YCH, for example. So TDP, the first phase, Tan Lang Dry Port, this was truly our baby, right? I mean, we were very, I would say we put in a lot of sweat and tears into this project. We completed it within 11 months, and now we're basically taking on new debt to refinance our equity. So we took that first step when nobody had, to essentially provide an avenue for the Lao government to maximize the use of the Laos-China Railway, right? So I think, this sort of turns the notion of Laos falling into a debt trap upside down and us not benefiting by, a leading private sector company like ourselves, assuming a project and executing it so that the country can benefit. So that was TDP for us. Now, in terms of financials for VLP as a whole, I think the projections based on the feasibility studies that we hired Royal Haskoning to conduct 2 years ago was that from 2025 onwards, we would be generating at about $103 million in revenues, and that would be growing on a compounded annual basis around 5% to reach $327 million in revenues. The EBITDA margins are quite attractive at 60%, right? So very profitable business. So in good time, over the next 5 years or so, I think we can make our money back as a financial and strategic investor. So with that, I would like to close and sort of remind you that for a country like Laos to undertake these projects, we need all the help we can get, right? So the opportunity is for development of projects along the railway line, development of, additional warehousing capacity at VLP, the free trade zone, right? So I think this will help realize the vision and do more than anything, I would say, in promoting the people-to-people contacts between the ASEAN bloc with these major economies surrounded with Laos. And I think that's in the spirit of this forum to essentially realize that ASEAN dream. Thank you for your attention.